Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergok, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at the most devastating conflict that humanity has suffered in recent memory, and why so many other human or at least humanoid states signed on the very declaration of war that enabled Ainsul Ghoul to send his troops to re-establish. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, as well as say thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. The war against the Kingdom of Re-establish was one of the most devastating conflicts in the history of humanity in the New World. Triggered by a seemingly insignificant event, it was responsible for millions of deaths and a few thousand displaced, who managed to escape the wrath of the Sorcerer Kingdom by fleeing to other countries. And perhaps I should provide some context here. Conflicts between human states, unlike in our own world, are somewhat novel in the New World, in this manner at least. Despite the fact that wars in the New World can be extremely brutal, the idea of such a conflict is a relatively new one, because the theocracy aims to protect humanity as a whole and strives for a kind of pan-humanism. This means that all humans, whether they are from the theocracy, the kingdom, the empire, the Dragon Kingdom, the Holy Kingdom, or even the city-state alliance of Carnassus, are considered equals. The very idea that individuals from specific states are somehow superior, or a sense of modern nationalism as we know it, does simply not exist in the New World. This is primarily due to the fact that it is a predominantly rural, medieval society. Wars, conflicts, and state matters need to be viewed from a feudal perspective, if you want to understand the New World. The system of fiefs, guilds, and the importance of the ordinary villager's life are central, and modern nation-states do not exist in the same way as they do in our own world. Moreover, the automatic translation of languages plays a great role, as yes, everyone in the new world of Overlord speaks different languages, but they are automatically translated, likely through magic, ensuring that everyone can understand each other. Only the written language differ. But this is an insignificant difference in everyday life of 90% of people, of the farmers and rural inhabitants, as well as for the day laborers and workers in the cities. If the theocracy of Slayn were to rule over the Empire or the Dragon Kingdom, for example, they wouldn't impose their language on the people, nor would they treat them as second-class citizens. The lines of conflicts are more likely to run along religious tensions, which is the core reason, along some other factors, why the Kingdom of Re-establish, and especially the Holy Kingdom, had such poor relationships with the theocracy. And even then, the life of a human is still worth something in the eyes of the theocracy. So what I want to say is they would not be treated badly by the theocracy, but just converted to their own faith of the 6 great gods. And the primary cause of such devastating wars, as we have seen them in the Kingdom of Re-establish in the New World, is often conflict between different species, such as between the Beastman nation and the human inhabitants of the Dragon Kingdom. However, even there, humans are not seen as enemies because they are human, but rather just as prey. And the same happened in the Dwarf Kingdom, when the Quagoa invaded. It was about destroying any potential competition for the valuable ores that the Quagoa feed on in their youth to become powerful as adults. So the concept of a war of extermination as a symbol of retaliation and a demonstration of power is largely unknown in the entire New World, at least among humans in the western part of the continent. And against this very backdrop, it becomes clear why so many states seem to thoughtlessly approve in the declaration of war against the Re-establish Kingdom, since they expected a similar conflict as between the Kingdom of Rhys Tais and the Empire, to whom which the Sorcerer Kingdom, at least initially, was an ally, before it became its superior. And I should also explain why the political situation escalated from the perspective of the Sorcerer Kingdom, because after all, just a single grain transport was attacked. And Ainz naturally had the option of demanding territorial or monetary compensation for the attack on the grain transport. And for example, he could have insisted on securing further territories from the kingdom, or demanding the right of safe passage. So just as the Panama Canal was once part of the United States of America, Ainz could have simply demanded a direct route to the Holy Kingdom that would become a permanent part of the Sorcerer Kingdom. But by questioning whether Demiurge and Albedo's carrot-and-stick strategy has failed, Ainz unknowingly triggered the need to set an example. The Sorcerer Kingdom was attacked, and a food transport, essentially a civilian trade caravan, was plundered. If this were left to be unpunished, it would be seen as a sign of weakness, indicating aggression or at least indifference towards the Sorcerer Kingdom is rewarded. For Albedo and Demiurge, the vassalization of the Balrog Empire and the friendship treaty with the Dwarven Kingdom were only one small part of the larger strategy that Ainz Ooal Gown pursued. And Ainz had mistakenly mentioned to Demiurge that he plans thousands of years ahead. And for Albedo and Demiurge, this clarified their strategy that they were pursuing to some degree. Those who submit, who join the Sorcerer Kingdom, will be treated well, while those who resist, like on the Cat's Plain, will feel the wrath of the Sorcerer King. This way all other nations would eventually submit to the Sorcerer Kingdom without a war. Demiurge even once calculated that the entire continent could be conquered by Nezarec within just 3 years. But the question of what losses Nezarec would suffer could not be satisfactorily answered, and therefore it remained a vague risk to the Great Tomb. And in this context, Ainz's strategy seems clearly better, even if neither Demiurge nor Albedo fully understood it, since some actions of the Undead Overlord were just too unpredictable. However, with the resistance of the kingdom, this strategy seemingly began to falter, or at least was tested, and it was necessary to signal to the world that this aggression and resistance against the Sorcerer Kingdom would never be tolerated, and would always lead to one's own downfall. This was to deter any potential imitators and rebels, and showing that no one would consider challenging the Sorcerer Kingdom for generations to come. This was the internal political reason why they went to war against the kingdom, why the war was so devastating, and why all diplomatic concessions in the world, and even King Rampossa's head, who again did everything in his own power to stop the war, could not prevent this conflict anymore, since it was no longer just about Rhys Tais itself, but about sending a message that everything burns if they oppose Ainz Ooal Gown. And for the other kingdoms, which as mentioned were initially unaware of Albedo's and Demiurge's strategic consideration, the situation was different, but still understandable, from what they had known. According to the Empire's declaration of war, which led to the battle or rather the massacre of the Cat's Plain, the Kingdom of Rhys Tais had occupied lands, the lands around Irantel, that once belonged to Ainz Ooal Gown. Now, even after the defeat of the Cat's Plain, the kingdom apparently continued to act aggressively and hostile for some odd reason. Clearly, they had not understood the message that the Sorcerer Kingdom is not to be messed with, and therefore the Sorcerer Kingdom could not simply accept being attacked without consequences, and thus the war seemed likely justified, and as a just and well thought out response to the continued aggression of the Kingdom of Rhys Tais. Especially since the other realms did not know what Ainz Ooal Gown was planning, or how devastating the war against the Kingdom of Rhys Tais would actually be. What else was the Dwarven Kingdom, which had no idea of the broader political landscape, supposed to think? What were Nea Baraya and the Holy Kingdom supposed to think when their aid supplies were attacked? Why should the Empire, after supporting Ainz in the conquest of Irantel, do anything but maintain its course. For most realms, this war was, as far as they concerned themselves, justified, at least on paper, at least in the context of this unprovoked attack on the grain transport. But there's another factor. Many realms choose to side with the Sorcerer Kingdom due to their own political situation. The Empire of Baharut was completely subjugated already, and Albedo made the decisions that Jugnuv simply had to implement on site. In other words, of course the Empire would support the Sorcerer Kingdom. It is now de facto a part of it. And the Dwarven Kingdom, as already mentioned, had no idea about the broader political situation, and therefore assumed that the war was justified. And even if it wasn't, they couldn't afford to give up the food supplies from the Sorcerer Kingdom, nor the numerous undead workers who tirelessly mined ores and precious gemstones from the very depths of the mountain, 24/7. Moreover, the Sorcerer King had freed the Dwarven Kingdom's capital and saved them from the Quagoa. They were therefore deeply in debt to the Sorcerer Kingdom, and would depend on them for years and decades to come. And spoiler alert, for the movie about the Holy Kingdom, after the events there, Nea Baraya and her cult, which worshipped Ainz Ulgon as justice personified, had gained power. So naturally Nea would support the war declaration against the kingdom that had attacked their own aid supplies. And Nea Baraya would likely have also been the first person to see the war, even if its full scale had already been known to her, as justified and righteous, because with the attack on the grain transport, the kingdom of Riestais behaved just like the demon emperor Yaldabaoth. And finally, the Dragon Kingdom was absolutely dependent on the help of the Sorcerer Kingdom right now, because despite paying tribute to the theocracy of Slayn, no help was sent. Not even the Sunlight Scripture, which usually intervened against the incursions of the Beastmen, were sent out. Even with such a pressing dire need that the Dragon Kingdom now faces. I mean, how could they? Ainz Ulgon had already defeated and annihilated the Sunlight Scripture in the first conflict in the New World, and the survivors were captured and interrogated, with many of them now residing on the Happy Farm. And with all other available troops now needed for the war against the Elven Kingdom, no help could be sent. The Empire of Baharut also initially halted all military aid when it submitted to the Sorcerer Kingdom, worsening the situation on the front for Draudilon even more. So of course the Beastmen managed to conquer large parts of the border regions, including major cities and regional centers. This pressured Draudilon further to cooperate with the lowest and most despised people in her own realm already. Thus, Draudilon Auriculus was naturally very grateful that the Sorcerer Kingdom took the place of the theocracy and the Empire, providing her Dragon Kingdom, which again despite its name consists of humans and therefore was relatively weak, with generous help and support in the fight against the Beastmen. So naturally, Draudilon saw herself compelled to support the war declaration against the Kingdom of Riestais in return, to ensure that continued support was still coming in from the Sorcerer Kingdom. And it should also be mentioned that, unlike the Empire, which feared it might be the next kingdom to fight the Beastmen, the Kingdom of Riestais never sent any meaningful military aid, or at least none worth mentioning. It was too preoccupied with itself and felt too secure behind its mountains and its fortress city of Irantel as to lend any help to the Dragon Kingdom. Thus the Dragon Kingdom had no reservations about supporting the war declaration against them. And with that said, let's summarize. The reason why the Sorcerer Kingdom received so much support in its war declaration against the Kingdom of Riestais, and why other nations also signed this declaration as supporters, was that no one could have foreseen that the attack of the Sorcerer Kingdom would be so destructive for the entire nation. Furthermore, many of these nations were either in debt to the Sorcerer Kingdom, like the Dwarven or the Dragon Kingdom, or were vassal states, like the Baharut Empire, and thus obedient to the Sorcerer Kingdom anyway. And with that said, now it's your turn. What are your thoughts on the video and your support of the conflict from the known nations of the New World? Let me know it down in the comment section. And while you're typing, I'd like to say thanks for watching, thanks to all of my Patreons for supporting this channel, and as usual, special thanks to Other Daddy Other, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Bezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 0221, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dan Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Moreno, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch V. Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofrazer, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Cune Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, Diorg Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito 27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Zinukai, and Sonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon on my next video.